Welcome to episode number 2. Today I'm bringing to you Amie Freling of MeMeHill Studio. Amie's work is a perfect blend of traditional and whimsical style, and she merits a large and dedicated following as a designer, artist, and a tastemaker. She shares her signature blend of pattern and colors with clients ranging from restaurants and businesses to residential homes of all sizes. She has a decorative line of hardware carried by True Value and an original line of home accessories that she sold at Nordstroms, and we're going to hear that fun story today. When Amie is not updating her blog and working as a contributing design editor for her local newspaper, she is at work at her next great creation. And I am so excited to share that with you. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome, Amie. I'm so happy that you're here with me today. This is Amie Freling of MeMeHill Studio. Did I say that correctly?
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I'm honored.
Oh my gosh, I'm just beyond thrilled that you're doing this with me because you're a fascinating person, and I know everybody is going to be so interested to hear your story. Amie is a designer and she's an artist. She is a tastemaker for the home decor industry, which is really why I think I gravitated to you, because we have such similar backgrounds, and I've never met anyone who's an artist and a designer like what I do. I'm sure they're out there, but you are amazing.
Thank you. I think we're soul sisters. I think that's why we connected right away.
We absolutely are soul sisters, especially when I went through your bio and I saw like you've done restaurants and you've done homes, and we've had so many similar experiences, except I don't paint ginormous, gorgeous murals like you do. But so going on,
you do it on like smaller scale, like
much smaller scale.
Me like an 8.5 piece of paper, I'd be like, I'd freeze up. I couldn't do it. I need
That's absolutely not true, because I've seen your interior sketches, and your interior sketches are amazing.
Thank you.
So there. So you have your own line of hardware at True Value. I cannot wait to talk about that. You have home accessories at Nordstroms. We're going to have to dive into that. You've been featured on HGTV, duh, why wouldn't you be? And tons of magazines, Better Homes and Garden magazine, and many others. And you're also, somehow you seem to find time to be a brand ambassador for Raymore Flanagan, Sherwin Williams, Delta Faucet, to just name a few. You probably never sleep, and you're a mom.
I am. I know. I know people ask me that question all the time. They're like, how do you do it? And actually I sleep very well. I'm waiting for, I do think of all my ideas at night, and sometimes I get up and I run into my office and jot all my crazy ideas down, or sometimes I'm way too tired and I forget about them in the morning. But I just keep going. I think it's part of who I am, and part of what my mom, who is, they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I'm definitely my mother's daughter, and my sister is, we don't slow down. So I don't know. I get a lot done.
I think that's so, I just want to touch on that. One thing that you just said was that you get a lot of your ideas at night, and I am the exact same way. I think that's because our minds start to kind of quiet down, and then we get really creative, and it's so annoying because you're not billing for those hours.
Exactly.
That you're like walking through those spaces and designing what they're going to look like. That's funny. But see, another thing we have in common, I guess that's the way our brains work.
It is. I think a lot of creative people are like that. I just I don't know where I get my ideas. I have no clue. It's hard being creative. I always see things and always find a new need for them, or a new purpose, or how can I reuse it, or how this could be better. So
I love that. And you do that a lot with furniture. You did that for a while doing furniture. Didn't you kind of be repurposing and repainting different furniture pieces?
Actually, that's how I got started. Right after college, I moved to Washington, D.C., and I got a job with Environment Magazine, and I worked my way up. I started out, laying out copy, and then little by little, I worked my way up to being an art director, but working for a nonprofit doesn't always pay the bills. I think I was making something like, $18,000, and living in Washington, D.C. on that kind of income, you don't get to do much. I mean, our big night out was going to Pizza Hut once a week. So I would scour the Georgetown flea market, and I would find old pieces of furniture, and I would take them home and paint them all different fun colors and kind of upcycle them. And that's how it all got started. And once I moved home after my 5 years in DC, I said, what, I think I can make a living out of painting furniture. And at that time, painted furniture, people really didn't know how to accept it. It was, in the early 90s, and, people would look at me at the art show circuit and be like, oh, she's charging, $100 for that chair. It's just a painted chair. Well, meanwhile, I had 6 hours put into it, and I probably paid $25 for the chair anyway. So it was a hard sell, but that's how this whole journey to where I am today, it's all about, reinventing yourself, and, I still love painted furniture, and, that was kind of how I got started. And I named my business after my grandparents. My grandfather was...
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, yes. He was
let's talk about the MeMeHill, because I thought that Mimi was short for Amy, a nickname, but you said no, there's a whole story behind it. So why don't you share that with us?
Yeah, so again, when I started painting furniture, I needed a kind of a neat name, and my grandfather at the time was this sweet old Italian man in his 80s, and he had a little co-op to make some extra money, and he would make all these cute creations like wooden tulips and bird houses and everything. And he didn't do a great job painting. And my mom came to me one time and she says, Amy, Grandpa Mimi has all these great things. Can you help him out and start painting? So I did, and I fell in love with painting these three-dimensional objects, and just kind of bringing life to ordinary wood, or just upcycling. And so that's kind of where the Mimi came. And then my Grandma Hill is my father's mother. Her name was Hillavy, and growing up we could never say Grandma Hillavy, so we just called her Grandma Hill for short. And she was an art teacher. And so she taught me how to paint. So that's kind of where this love and this lineage of creativity came from. So me being in the creative industry was kind of, it
was a given.
I just want to say it was destiny, because between my dad or my mom's side and my father's side, my Grandma Hill, when we were young, we used to go visit her, and there weren't Barbies, there weren't any kind of that stuff. We walked in, we greeted her with a big hug, and we ran right into the living room, and there was a folding table, card table with, fresh crayons and sprinkles and, glitter and all sorts of craft paper and new scissors and all that kind of stuff. And we literally would sit at that card table all weekend and just create. And, it only seemed natural for me to name my business after my two grandparents, kind of paying homage to the people I loved and their art. So that's how that name came about.
It's a beautiful story. And again, the similarities. I had the whole furniture stint thing, and my grandmother was an artist and my grandfather was a carpenter. And he was Italian. Really, this is so strange, the two of us, but a little bit different story.
How do we not live on the same coast?
Well, I'm from New Jersey, so maybe.
Okay.
Maybe there was something. So maybe we are related somewhere. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, we got to get on that ancestry.com and figure those things out.
Exactly. I really love the idea of just putting crayons and supplies in front of a child because it's your natural instinct to want to create. And I feel like as we get older, that we lose that unless we have somebody who's nurturing that in us and fostering it and making it something that is a joyful experience. So it's just, I mean, I did that with my girls growing up. They always had access to a studio and they're all incredible artists. And my mom did it for me. She'd give me a big box of buttons and I would just make all kinds of things with little buttons. And it's just, that's a wonderful story about honoring them and continuing on as a creative and that they valued that. That's a wonderful thing.
I often, think about, them, and I'm reminded my grandmother, I think I might have told you this before, the story, like every time I see a barn, like she asked me before she passed away, paint me a barn, paint me a red barn, and I just never got a chance, and she passed away, so I'm like, in a good way, I'm kind of haunted by these red barns, and I feel like that's her way of, giving me the A-OK up in heaven about what I'm doing in my path. So someday I'm going to paint a huge red barn and...
or maybe you'll build a red barn, knowing you.
I know. Well, I know. That's on my list.
Oh, okay. A little to-do list there. So you were, back in the 90s, you were doing the furniture and that was going well for you. And then when did you start to get into doing blogging? Or what was the next step for you, basically?
Well, once I opened my studio, I did my art show circuit. And
was that with paintings or was that just with...
It was paintings. It was everything from greeting cards to my hand-painted one-of-a-kind knobs to furniture. I would do everything from candlesticks to picture frames to large pieces of furniture, beds, everything in between. I painted flower pots. It was just like an explosion of color, which, I loved, and patterns. So that's how I met a lot of brands. I was at a booth in Connecticut, and this very unassuming woman came up to me with jeans and a T-shirt on and a baseball cap, and she spent some time in my booth. And I always greet people. I don't like to totally pounce on them. What do you want to buy? What do you want to buy?
Yeah, right.
Don't you like it? So I greeted her. I said hi, and I said, if you have any questions, let me know. And she spent about 10 minutes looking around. And then she said to me, do you ever sell wholesale? And I was like, well, everything's one of a kind, and I make a lot of this stuff, so I haven't yet. And she says, well, I'm interested in buying your work. And I said, okay. And she handed me her card, and she was the buyer for Nordstroms.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like... when do you want it? That was my answer. And she said, I'm interested in these flower pots. We did picture frames. We did a lot of vases. I did, a bunch of, accessories. And
so how did you do that? Did you do it all, or did you hire some people?
Oh, I started to hire some high school girls, daughters of my clients. And, I had, and the funny thing is that, when Nordstrom says to you, I want, 1,000 flower pots and I want them in 3 weeks, you say, no problem.
And then you don't sleep.
Just to have that feather in your cap. So I had my whole family. I had all these girls helping me. We painted, we shipped things out. I learned a lot about distribution. And they were mostly on the East Coast. But, I got it done. And literally we finished it 3 days before my wedding. Which... No,
you were not having a wedding at the same time.
Oh, yeah. I'm just getting married. Just a little tiny event. in between there. So, but that was great. And, and then all my friends were telling me, oh my God, I just saw your stuff at Nordstroms. So I said, I went and bought the pots. And I'm like, oh my God, So that was just really, really exciting. And that was my first kind of interaction with a big brand or retailer. And then,
that is no small feat. That was an incredible story. And I can't believe you were getting married at the same time.
I think it was being in the right place at the right time. And,
wow.
And things just kind of started from there. And once you have, you say you've worked with Nordstroms, it gives you a little bit of credibility. And then came stores purchasing the knobs, and it went from there. And one of my first clients who I painted her son's, I painted, I think it was a high chair. So she came to me, she goes, you're so good with color and pattern, can you do this on a wall? And I was like, ooh, I've never painted on a wall before. She says, well, it's the same thing on a bigger scale. And so I did. I painted fish. I painted in her son's bathroom. I painted fish on the walls. And I was like, oh, this is fun. And that started my mural journey. And then from there, fast forward, I don't know, like maybe 15 years, after a while you get tired of going up and down and up and down.
Yeah.
I was doing a lot of, mural work and ceilings and faux finishes. And I was working for a client. I was doing a bunch of like Michelangelo murals on the ceiling. And I was working 7 days a week. And I would come home and I would tell my husband, Ross, I said, Ross, I really don't feel good. And he's like, you're just working too hard. And I go, yeah, but it's a weird feeling. Like, I just don't feel good. Like, my neck and my shoulders hurt me. I just don't feel good. And so I would go to work the next day and paint. And then I finished the job, and I was like, I just don't feel good. And he goes, why don't you go away? And I went to Boston to celebrate my best friend's 40th birthday. And in the plane, I was just like feeling really hot and then really cold, and my head was killing me. And I got to Boston. I went in the bathroom. I was like all flush. And I said, something's not right with me. And I ended up having a mini stroke. I had an aneurysm. And that was from me bending my head up, painting these ceilings.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, it was really bad. So I was at a point where I had to reinvent myself. So my doctors are like, no more ceilings. I'm like, yeah, but painting is in me. They're like, okay, you can just paint, canvases or paint walls. And so that was the end of my ceiling work. And then, like when one door closes, one door opens. I always say God has my plan. So as soon as I stopped trying to create my future and let it happen, things just came. I know it sounds super corny, but that's how it worked out. And one of my friends who's a builder came to me and said, you're really good with color. Come help me pick out colors for this parade of homes. We call them Homerama here. And I go, all right, I'll pick out colors. And he loved everything. He's like, okay, so what about tile? And I said, okay, let's pick out some tile. And he's like, what about carpeting? I said, yeah, I think this will look good. He's like, okay, so now here's this, 6-bedroom house. I want you to furnish it. And I was like, what? Like, I'm an interior designer? What do you mean? He goes, I love everything you do. I trust you, just go ahead. So that's how my interior design started. I did this parade of homes. It was, a great house. I still love the house. I am friends with the people who owned it. And, you know, I don't have any interior design background. I feel like you either got it or you don't. I mean, I'm sure you know interior designers that have the worst taste. And then there are people who are just homeowners. You walk into their house and it could be, you know, out of a magazine. So you either have it or you don't. I feel like it's just something you have. So,
well, I think that there's definitely more to either having it or not having it. I mean, I think having a strong background in architecture and construction and how things work and are built is important if you're really doing interior design seriously. But I do agree with you that it's very innate, and it's for you and I being artists first. I'm just assuming that you approach it the way I do. I just approach it as a different art project. It's just three-dimensional art. But I do know a lot about building houses. I've built my own, and I've built, you know, restaurants from the scratch. And I apprenticed under an architect too. So I really could understand how things are put together. Not the pretty part at the end, but you still need to understand, you know, lighting.
Oh, absolutely. And I learned that along the way. That was
absolutely. And that's like really kind of the best way to learn it, is actually doing it, you know, and that's why I was really fortunate when I had gotten under the wing of a really talented architect who showed me how to do those things. And even though it came naturally, you still had to learn that technical part of it.
Oh yeah. Like they're talking about all these different, you know, building terms of, I'm like, what's a newel post?
Yeah, and just how, you know, different types of cabinetry and how things are built.
Header.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I'm like, Schluter? What's a Schluter? So
I definitely have an edge being an artist. I mean, because then it's so easy to put colors and
that's the creative
texture,
right? Right. But learning the building part and the structural stuff and doing all that stuff has been, you know, it's been a learning curve for me, and I'm very fortunate to be around some great people and architects, and you know, I just immerse myself into these projects, and I'm not afraid to say, I don't know what that is, or what is it? Or, so, you know, I'm always learning. I always love it. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I came about today. And I didn't really answer your question about brands, but you know,
I think I was asking about when you started blogging, but you were saying that.
Yeah. So blogging came about, I would say, about 5 years ago, when my daughter jumped on Instagram, and I said, my daughter Chloe says, Mom, I want to get an Instagram. And I was like, oh boy, it's already starting. And I said, okay, there's a couple rules we have. I'm like, you know, there's no sticking out your tongue. There's no like bathroom shots. There's no like you got to take normal. Well, you know, these girls like...
I do know. I have 3 daughters.
You have 3 daughters, so you know. But and I told her, I go, you know, there's weirdos out there. And I go, it's not you. It's the people who are looking at these photos. And I said, you know, the only way you're going to have an Instagram account is if Mom gets one too. So, you know, after 2 weeks of watching girls post pictures of, you know, Starbucks Frappuccinos, I was like, this is getting a little tired. So I said, I'm just going to start posting pictures of what I'm doing, whether it was a mural or a design job or furnishing a home or anything. I just started kind of, you know, what my day was. And it kind of took off, and I started gaining all these followers. And, you know, again, with these builders that I was working on or staging, they'd be like, okay, we finished the house. Now I want to have an open house like next week. So give me some furniture. So I thought, oh my God, you know, where am I going to go? So I would go to these stores like Home Goods and Marshall's and Raymore and Flanagan and, you know, all these different places to get furniture. And once I started decorating and painting, I started tagging the brands. So that was big. That was huge. Started tagging the brands. And then they came to me at the time. I was tagging Home Goods. Home Goods has over 2 million followers now. And I was tagging them. And I think they had like 3,000 or 33,000, something, not a lot. Well, a lot to my standards back then. And,
right. They were just kind of starting then. Mm-hmm.
So, I was fortunate to get in early and, partner with them. And they said, we love your style. We love your approach and how you use our pieces. Would you like to partner? And, part of it's, sharing your ideas on a blog. And I was like, well, I better get my butt in gear and get that blog going. So that's kind of where that came in. And, also with, Sherwin Williams and paints and doing murals and all these different techniques and faux finishing and glazing and all that stuff. That's all where it started. So that's the start of it. And, presently I'm not painting as much. I am very particular with my jobs, the mural jobs, because it's very physical. It's up and down. It's like a step class. Imagine, having your supplies down on a little card table and going up and down and, even getting up and down scaffolding, it's a lot of work and your arms up high. And, I get tired. I'm an old lady now. So,
oh gosh, you're hardly old.
I know, but so I would probably say that a majority of my work is design, about 85% design and blogging, and, like 15% painting now.
Well, I think you're such a perfect person to be a spokesperson for that because you really understand the product. You're using the product. I mean, it completely makes sense. And then, you're gifted and you're talented and you make it look good.
Well, so, you know what? The best thing is to, a lot of brands approach me, and I am very particular. I want to be genuine, so I represent the brands that I believe in and that I use. So
I think that's really important, and that shows in your social media because you can definitely tell the people who are just doing it, to make a buck or whatever.
Yeah, free product and stuff. No, I'm like, if I don't.
And you want longevity with that. It's a relationship that you're building with those companies. And, it's an ongoing relationship, not just something like, I'm using this to get skinny today.
Exactly. Although, you know of a product to get skinny today, let me know.
Me too. We can both use it. No, I can use it. Not you, but I could use it for sure. Okay, so I love that you talked about a little bit when you went to college. So you're in New York and you went to school at Syracuse? Is that?
I went to Syracuse University. I studied illustration and advertising design.
Oh, yep. Okay. And then you were in a class and you had a teacher say to the class of 28 that only 2 of you will make it in a career in art.
Yeah, there are, I don't have a great memory, but I do remember pivotal moments like that. I remember the first day of art school, my freshman year, and she said to us in a drawing and painting class, she says, look around, there's 28 of you, and, 2 of you are going to have a career in art. And I was like, you know what? I am going to be that person. Like it was almost like she was feeding us a little challenge. And I said, I'm going to be that person. And, it's just those kind of things that just stay with you. And, that keep me going, that kind of power me to keep moving and keep following my dream. My mom's like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm sending you to school to paint lines and dots on furniture. And I'm like, Mom, look at me now. Look at me now.
Yeah, see, that's what's so great about it is you can make a living being an artist, and
You can.
we need to abolish that whole old stereotype of being the starving artist. I think that needs to really go in the trash right now.
Yeah,
I love
exactly.
that you wrote that you work best when you're challenged, aka the school, or rejected. So when were you ever feeling that you were rejected?
You know, just kind of like finding, I have this terrible trait of comparing myself to other people, you know, relating their success to mine, and I have to kind of take, the road that everyone, my friend Uni says to me, we all have our own lane. There's enough jobs and ideas and styles that we can all drive in our own lane, which I just kind of like love that. I just, um, I had a friend, she was a mom. She had, young kids, and I helped her get a studio, and I employed her daughter, and, just kind of helped her, gave her advice along the road. And, she got this great opportunity with a licensing company. And I was like, oh my God, do you think you could give me, could you hook me up? Can you like give me? And she was like, no, that's my gig. And I thought, you know what? That's totally not fair. Here I just, helped you along. I gave you all, I felt rejected. I was like, you know what? I'm going to find my own gig. Like maybe you're right. Maybe that, and, from there on, I've always kind of like wanted to help people. And, I try as much. Taking, people are always like, I love to pick your brain. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So, I go out, I help other people. I love to give my art away. I do. I do. I always feel like if I had a lot of money, I would just paint for free. I feel like everyone should own art, and that's probably why, it was so hard for me. I would, buy these, flower pots, and I'd spend $2 on them. And by the time I painted them and sealed them and, put them all together and packaged them all pretty, and I was selling them for, $16. I was making like, whatever, $2 an hour.
Right.
But, it was good, to see that people loved my art. And I always would think, oh my gosh, how exciting. My mom said to me, just imagine how many people on Christmas Eve are opening up your presents. And I just thought of it in a totally different way. And I said, that's my mission is to spread this art and, add color and life, and, and you don't have to be,
that's really
depressed.
It's true. And, the artists are the light makers, they bring joy to the world. If we didn't have art in the world, it wouldn't be such a nice place. I mean, we need music, we need cinema, we need dance, we need beautiful murals to look at. And speaking of, I find it so charming and so sweet that you painted a mural, or maybe you've done several, for the Children's Hospital. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes. So my sister is involved with the Galisanos Children's Hospital, which is part of the University of Rochester. It's a big medical hospital here, and I love to do work and with them and in these kids, and I've done projects where we've painted together. We did this campaign called Benches on Parade, where these fiberglass, I'm sure you've seen them. I think they started out in Chicago. What did they have in Chicago? Did they have lions or something? Or
oh, I would have loved that.
Yeah.
we have cows.
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
They painted all these cows.
Yeah. Oh no, it was the cows, right?
Yeah, we had those. Yeah.
So we had these benches on the parade. We had horses on the parade. We had animals. We had everything. So, I worked on these benches, and all these benches were painted by local artists, and I teamed up with a bunch of childhood cancer kids. And let me tell you, I'm talking about tearing at your heart. These kids coming in with IVs, and, you know, we had to make sure everything was good for them to paint. And they helped me paint these. I mean, I'm getting choked up just literally thinking about this. You know, these kids helping paint. It was just like so incredibly moving. And, you know.
Geez, you know, if I could even get through one single podcast without crying, it would be a good day.
No, I mean, but they were loving life, and we painted this bench, and they helped me paint it, and you know, and it's you know, it's in the hospital now, so you know, my work gets to live on.
I love that so much, and I really believe that art is healing, and so when you can take children who are battling something really challenging in their life, and you can give them a moment away from that where they're creating and tapping into a whole nother part of themselves. It's everything. It's really wonderful that you do that.
And I've done multiple, you know, I did the neonatal, you know, at another hospital. I did some nursing rooms for high risk babies. So they're family rooms where, you know, here these children are at high risk or they're born prematurely, and they're family rooms where a family can come in and introduce, you know, the baby in a healthy environment. And they were just plain, you know, like that hospital yellow color. And so we went in and we did murals in there. And recently my last project was for an urgent care. I did kind of a forest-like meadow with, you know,
it's beautiful.
A bunch of different animals. Yeah, I know. So I've yet to get in there and really see it all completely finished. I think they're moving in the furniture this week. So, you know, I love doing kids' spaces. I love.
They're so fun.
Yeah. So anytime that I can help, I'm really excited. I'm working with Raymore and Flanagan. We're going to be launching this new community outreach program where we go in and, you know, I don't want to give out too much because it's still in the beginning stages, but we're helping, you know, a whole bunch of people really needy, whether, you know, it's everything from, you know, remaking an office space to, you know, someone with cancer who needs a new bed or bedroom or a beautiful space. And so,
it's really powerful how you can see how environments like they even talk a lot about it in Feng Shui, about when you wake up and you have a beautiful bedroom it's a healing place. And there's so much power in interior design and art and how it heals. And what you're talking about sounds so amazing. And
I'm excited.
Have to do a bonus podcast once it's all done, and you can share all the details of it.
I know.
It's really intriguing.
Oh, you're the best. You're the best. Just think of how many people see your artwork. Just think of how many of your calendars are hanging on people's offices and in their kitchens and all your beautiful, I love your coffee table book. I mean, I have it front and center in my office.
So
I just love it. I love it.
Well, you know, I think we come from the same place of creating art to bring joy to people, and that that shows up. You know, that's what comes out when you're doing it, and your energy too. It shows that as well. So it's just a wonderful thing to be an artist. It's so great. So the thing about this podcast is I'd love to be able to offer some of your words of wisdom. You've done so many different things, and you've kind of crossed over many different areas of being an artist. What would you say to somebody or to yourself, your 20-year-old self, when you're just starting out? What would be your words of advice that you would give to a younger person who's wanting to pursue a creative career?
I think stay true to yourself.
Good one.
Stay true to yourself. Like if you have a style, keep to that style because that's you. You can try to do another style, but ultimately it won't work.
Mm-hmm.
So, be yourself, and, whether, you like, decorating crazy all black spaces, or, like that's your style, or you love a certain color, you love to decorate with pink. Keep your style, and be you, because that quote, be you because everyone else is taken.
Mm-hmm.
So keep the style, do not wait. And yesterday is gone. So we can dream about all these big adventures and what could be, but if we don't start on them, I know that sounds cliche, but
it's really true.
And my last one is don't be afraid. Yeah.
That's kind of a tough one for artists, because a lot of artists are afraid.
You have nothing to lose, and what are you gonna? What is someone gonna say no? And and then you try again, and then for me, when someone says no, that's like it makes me want it even more. People ask me, how did your daughter's room get on the cover of Better Homes and Gardens publications? Well, I was waiting in line at Home Depot, and I looked at, the magazine as I was waiting in line to check out. And I'm like, I can do that. I can do that. My stuff is just as good as what they're showing, if not better. I can do it. And I grabbed the magazine. At that time, there wasn't, all this social media where you can connect with people. And that today, these young people have such opportunity where you can send a message to someone like Nate Berkus, or anyone, Oprah Winfrey. You can comment, and she will, or he will actually see your comment. And sometimes they reply back. To be able to connect now, I think, in the old days, you just couldn't do that. And
right.
I wrote a letter to the magazine editor, and I said, can I send you some pictures? And at the time, I printed out some terrible, crappy digitals, and she wrote me back. And she's like, we want to write a story about you. And then it was a surprise that it was on the cover. So,
wow.
Right. And it's just trying. It's taking the risk.
Right.
It's taking the risk and setting goals. And I think if you look at your goals, then, no goals are, not realistic.
You can achieve them all if you want. I always tell my daughters, if you don't ask, the answer is always no.
Exactly.
And
exactly. It's the same exact.
Yeah, and who cares if the answer is no? You just move on to the next one. But sometimes the answer is yes, and you've got a 6-page spread in a magazine.
Exactly. And my last one is to be kind. And I think that one almost as important. Like for me, going back to the woman who was, the buyer of Nordstrom, like she had sneakers on and a baseball cap and jeans, like,
purposely,
someone
probably.
could have been like, oh, she can't buy it, or she's just a looker. You never know. So I always give 100% to the clients, if they want me to, buy a couple pillows, or to the client where I'm, building a multi-million-dollar house. They all get 100%, they all get kindness, and they all get the same amount of attention. So you never know where the next adventure is going to take you.
Isn't that so great?
With them.
I totally agree with you. It doesn't make it any more difficult to be kind to people, and it just makes your day and your life so much easier. I love that so much. Okay, now I'm going to ask the crazy question. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Okay, so interior design. Okay, so my biggest pet peeve is when I see people don't know how to set a table.
I love that.
The fork goes on the left. And
it's in a magazine sometimes. You're like, what?
Oh my God. Like on Instagram, I know this sounds awful. I can't like a picture if they haven't set the set. I used to be a waitress, and that's only from being drilled from working in a restaurant for years. And I feel like even some of these bloggers, they set the table around. I'm like, damn it, you're supposed to be like showing people how it's done. And I've even seen a big company post pictures and the fork's not on the left side, and I'm like, the fork goes on the left side.
Oh my
So
gosh.
that's just, I gotta let that stuff go. But
But it's true.
It's a very
details. Those details are everything. I'm with you on that.
But it's literally just a very light little pet peeve. But, other than that, everyone's got their own style, and maybe they're bringing etiquette in a new way. Who knows?
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Amie. This has just been delightful. I love hearing all the stories and getting to know you better. And
thank you.
I can't believe how many similarities we have.
I know. Someday I'm going to show up. I'm going to show up at your studio and knock on the door and
I would love that. And we'll have cappuccino and cannolis, and we'll just.
Oh my God! I'll bring the sauce.
Oh my gosh!
We'll make the pizza. Yeah, I know.
We'll just have a big cooking fest.
I know. I love it. I know. When I met you, I was like, oh my God, this woman is like my sister. She's really not my sister. She's like more like my sister than my sister.
It's so strange. Our journey has been pretty similar. It's very interesting, but this was delightful, and I know everybody will enjoy it. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I can't, I just have a crazy life where I don't even think I've grown up yet. I don't even think I know what I want to be yet. So I appreciate finding interest in it.
It's such a journey, isn't it?
It is. It's a big journey.
Well, thank you, Amie. And all the links, and Amie, I will feature you on my blog, and we'll have some of your gorgeous work on there, and all the ways that you can contact and most definitely follow Amie, because she's so inspiring and gives you so many great ideas for what you can do with your home and with all kinds of different products. And she's just everything. So follow her.
You're the best. I think the same of you, and feel free to reach out, anyone who has any questions. I always like meeting new friends and finding new art to like, and
that's awesome. That's very generous of you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you like this podcast and you'd like to support it even more, you can join me over on patreon.com/MariRobeson and become a patron of mine. If you're a patron of mine, you'll receive bonus episodes every month, only for patrons. You'll also receive 20% off all the merchandise in my online shop, marirobeson.bigcartel, and you will be receiving free printables every month that will be of my artwork, and they're some really fun things. You can follow along on Instagram and you can see what I'm creating just for my patrons. I would deeply appreciate it. It would help me keep the lights on, and it would help me pay all the fees that it takes to put together a podcast like this, so that I can keep supporting all the artists, keep bringing you great information, keep paying it forward to the next generation of artists. It's just a wonderful thing, and I would really deeply appreciate your support.